Stop me if you've heard this before. No one makes better cookies than my mother. Okay, maybe you say grandmother in place of mother, but you get the idea. Italian mothers in particular somehow have this innate ability to bake really scrumptious Italian chocolate spice balls, cucciolati, pizzelles, you name it. Even their cookie dough is hard to resist inhaling. My mother, a Pantano, learned everything from her mother and aunts. Her father, an engineering architect who worked on the Manhattan Project, died when she was a teenager, so obviously I never met him. There's a portrait of him on our dining room wall now. It used to be in the living room, right over the couch. I think so he could watch TV while we were gone. I wonder what he thinks of the advancement of the family sitcom. Anyway, he loved to bake. There's a handwritten recipe of his old letterhead from his engineering job, but his wife loved it even more. My grandmother, on my mother's side, Nancy, owned a beauty shop in the basement of our house. According to my mother, the whole cookie-making affair was a circus. Grandma would have her 8 sisters and sisters-in-law over to help cook thousands of cookies, and in between batches she'd run downstairs to style and cut someone's hair, then march back up to check the sauce she had been cooking all day. I asked my mother about what she remembers. She always had the coffee pot on. She loved telling stories like I do with you guys, she said. Grandma died in 1989 when I was 8. My family was devastated. She watched all the Rugrats for years wreak havoc and cause all sorts of trouble. She watched as my brother Nick and I fought over our similar geekdom, while my sister Nicole was struck in the middle, and she watched my cousin Tommy pulled pranks on everyone, especially his dorky brother Joey, his stepsister Selena, and cousins Dave and Ashley. My father's parents lived a little bit longer. Grandpa Norm died in 1999 when I graduated college, and Grandma Jean passed away when I first started my first year teaching at Williamsville East. The hardest part about this tradition is the fondness and pain it brings back. I asked my mother what she thinks about when she thinks about making cookies. She paused for a few seconds. I think about your Uncle Tom, she said, as she started to cry, and how he was always eating the raw dough. I couldn't help but laugh. I asked her if he taught us kids to love to eat raw dough. He loved that recipe, she said. He'd come in, grab some, and we'd be yelling at him. You see, all these important people have passed away, yet we still meet every year to make the same recipe over and over again. In fact, over the years, the cookie menu expanded. Thanks to my mother, I grew up on other cookies too, like Mexican wedding cakes, those peanut butter cookies with Hershey Kisses on top, and the oh-so-American Christmas cutouts. The cutouts are the best cutouts I've ever had, hands down. They're not too sugary like sugar cookies, and they're not too doughy like chocolate chip cookies. I always thought my grandmother invented this recipe until recently. My mother opened a green rectangular recipe holder, which is really an old box full of index cards. Inside were old newspapers from like 50 years ago, and recipes saved over time. On any given index card, I found adapted recipes written in some weird form of English called cursive or something. The cutout recipe did indeed come from a newspaper, but it was for pupa con luva, a doughy cookie used around Easter rather than Christmas. So what was I to think about a fallacy in the very foundation of my being? I could no longer tell people how my grandmother's cookies were better than theirs because it didn't belong to her. She stole, borrowed, plagiarized. But that got me thinking about tradition. Traditions are just as tough to hold on to as they are to let go, like all the brothers in a family wearing mustaches, for example. Sometimes we don't even realize what we're passing along, like brothers wearing the same clothing, or brothers playing baseball, or even eating macaroni alioli every Christmas Eve, whether we like it or not. Sometimes traditions have surprises, and sometimes they always seem new, like that first day of school. Sometimes the creation of the tradition doesn't matter, as long as it means something to us.